Is back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes,
He's going for it.
Yes! Oh my goal! What a goal!
And that will do it. One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3-2.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And happy days are back in Philadelphia with the Philadelphia Union beating the Portland Timbers 2-0. And I'm sure all you guys feel the same way, right? Where we all hate West Coast games, and especially when the games are supposed to kick off at 10:25. Then they get delayed until 10:35. It's like, great. Like, a lot of us have work in the next morning. And I'm happy that we only have one more. I can't even say West Coast because it's not on the West Coast at all. We have one more game against a Western opponent down in Texas, take on FC Dallas at 9 p.m. Eastern time, I think it is, on a Wednesday. So, yeah, like, I feel like if the game against Portland would have been on a Saturday, I feel like, yeah, that still would have sucked, like the LAFC game. But for everybody that has to go to work, like, that's 10 times worse. And I saw that the Union and Portland game, I think it had over 300,000 people that watched it, which all in all is not terrible, especially for Fox. So for all you people that stayed up, watched that game in full, props to you. I know that was a struggle for myself to stay up, especially, after we scored the second goal in the second half, like the Union just kind of died and allowed in Portland to have the rest of the ball. And yeah, we'll talk about that game here in a minute. But yeah, all in all, so happy that the Union were able to get 3 points against Portland. We'll talk about the news, and I'll give my 3-star players. And yeah, unfortunately, because the game was on Fox, there's like no way for me to rewatch that game. I try to go to the Fox Sports app, and yeah, apparently they don't even have that game listed on their app to watch a replay of. And because of that, now I can't go and break down the goals how I want to break them down for you guys. And I can't even find a highlight video. I think my friend Billy told me that the highlights were on the MLS app, but I don't know. I don't use that app, so I never go on that app to check for highlights. If I do that, I'll go to YouTube, and couldn't find them on YouTube. But that's neither here or there. Like I said, we'll get to the news. There's a couple of different talking points that I want to talk about, and I'll play 2 clips from Jim Curtin's press conference, post-game press conference, and they're longer than what I normally play, so hopefully you guys don't mind that. But nonetheless, let's just go straight into the news. All right, so let's go ahead and focus on a team that is not the Philadelphia Union. And it's a team we've talked about, I feel like, the last couple of weeks, and that is Atlanta United. Andrew Gutman is out 8 to 12 weeks with a left quad injury. 17 injuries this season, with 4 of them being season-ending. I mean, you can't make this stuff up for Atlanta United, right? I mean, it's unbelievable when you look and see that they've had 17 players this season. 17 players injured this season, with 4 of them being season-ending. I mean, I know, what was it? Vancouver, I think I saw this past weekend, where they had no goalkeeper available for this match. So they had to use a kid from their academy on the bench. And you go ahead and look at Atlanta. I mean, no teams in the league have been hit as hard as they have with injuries this season. And what's the issue? I mean, everybody goes and looks and blames the turf in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I mean, I know I have on this podcast, but the Andrew Gutman injury, it didn't even happen in Mercedes-Benz. It happened in Nashville. But to lose 17 players so far this season, and I say so far because you got to imagine, I mean, it's going to continue to happen. I mean, we're 3 months into the 2022 season, and they have 17 injuries, with 4 players missing the rest of the season, with 3 Achilles injuries and 1 ACL injury. I mean, it's unbelievable. And you look in 2021, they had Edmondson Hyndman miss a season because of a ACL injury. And you look at all the players that had lower body injuries. They had quad injuries last year as well, Mo Adams. And a lot of the injuries, when you look, ever since Atlanta United joined MLS, a lot of the injuries are reoccurring injuries, quad injuries. You have ACL injuries. You have Achilles injuries. You have knee injuries, which, granted, that stuff happens in soccer, but Atlanta United, since they've been in MLS, they haven't won a season yet without a player missing for the rest of the season. And I mean, I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it. Right? I feel bad for Atlanta United. I feel bad for any team that has injuries because I want the Philadelphia Union playing these teams when they're at full strength. And it's always the next man up mentality. I get that, right? But at least for me, I want to see the Union beat Atlanta United. I want to see them beat Seattle Sounders at their very best. I want to see them beat New York City when they're at their very best. And because you're always going to have fans say, well, the only reason you won this game is because blah, blah, blah was injured. Like if the Union would have beat New York City last year in the Eastern Conference Finals, their fans would have said, oh, well, you only beat us because Tati Castellanos was suspended for this match. So, yeah, that's why, I don't like hearing people make excuses why they didn't win, why the other team beat them. I just want to see teams at their full strength, and unfortunately, that's not going to be the case for Atlanta United when we take them on this season. Like I said earlier, I'm sure the injury to Andrew Gutman is not going to be the last. But let's go ahead and talk about 2 Philadelphia Union talking points. I'll get the short one out of the way, and that is Kai Wagner and Ale Bedoya earned Team of the Week honors for Week 13 in MLS. Both of those guys had phenomenal games. Both of those guys also make my 3-star players, and I'll go over and read some of their stats and tell you guys why I think they were the star players on the night. But yeah, it's nice to see Bedoya finally get some recognition from the league because we know he does not get that at times with fans. And, like you can say, yeah, Todd, you've said things about Bedoya too. You're right. I've said that I don't think he can play 90 minutes as much as he's playing. And he's proving time and time again that his body's fit enough. And I believe I played a clip for you guys a few months ago where Bedoya was talking about how people were talking about how they thought he was done and everything. And he was talking about how people don't know how well he takes care of his body, that his wife's a physical therapist and his body feels great. So, yeah, it's just nice to see Bedoya get Team of the Week honors. And, Bedoya still has something to offer. And like I said, we'll talk about what stood out for me in my 3-star players. And then the last segment, the last talking point I want to talk about is Brenden Aaronson to Leeds United for $30 million, according to Tom Burgert. I know Fabrizio Romano reported it as well. And Tom says, additionally, the Philadelphia Union will receive their sell-on clause that was between 10 and 20% for Brenden Aaronson. The Union have already got $9 million from the Brenden Aaronson deal. And if you guys forgot, the original agreement was for $6 million, and then the Union had $3 million worth of incentives in the deal for Brenden Aaronson. They were super easy incentives, Ernst Tanner told us, and Brendan's hit all those incentives, which put the deal to $9 million. But then because of that sell-on clause that's between 10 to 20%, the Union now are going to get between $3 to $6 million extra dollars for Brenden Aaronson, which could put the deal to $15 million, which is insane because Brenden Aaronson, when he was coming out of the academy, he was looked at as a good prospect, but I don't think a lot of people that, follow the prospects in the United States, I don't think a lot of those guys had Brenden Aaronson up there as one of the best coming out of the academy. They definitely had him up there as a good prospect to keep your eyes on, but to see him progress as fast as he did, where now he's getting consistent call-ups with U.S. national team, to see him go ahead and win 2 league titles with Salzburg, to see him play against Bayern Munich in the Champions League. I mean, This guy did no wrong when Salzburg were playing in the Champions League, and to see him finally get this move to the Premier League, which he's talked about plenty of times where he wants to play in that league. You know, I think going to Leeds United with Jesse Marsch, I think it's going to do wonders for him. We saw him with Jesse Marsch in Salzburg when Jesse was there, and Jesse said nothing but great things about Brenden. Now they get to be reunited again, and here's something that I've always said, where I think Brenden Aaronson would be the perfect signing for Liverpool, because Jurgen Klopp loves a player that's going to press, a player that's going to do all the dirty work. And that's exactly what Brenden Aaronson does. He's a player that can play all over. You can play on the wing. He can play as a 10. He can play as an 8. He's a player that loves taking players on 1v1. He's a player that loves to play splitting line passes. His shots got better since he's been at Salzburg. I mean, 18 months ago, he was in Philadelphia. And to see him be the player that he is now, I mean, it's so hard to believe that in 2020, he was in Philadelphia winning the Supporters' Shield. And, he's a guy who I think is just going to continue to get better. And I think when the World Cup comes around, he's going to be a big reason why the U.S. do well in the World Cup. And Jim Curtin was asked after the game, what are your thoughts on now having this extra money to spend at the club? Do you plan on buying new players in the summertime? And this is what Jim Curtin had to say.
The one thing I've learned over the years, and I hope people don't take this the wrong way, but the job of a head coach more than anything is actually to grow the value of the team. I know that might sound crazy and people might, step back and say, no, certainly the first thing that grows value is winning. Winning is literally the number one thing that grows value. So I say that is the number one most important thing. But along with that now, I think that, when teams in our league and teams in the world now look to our club as a team that can develop players and sell players, that grows the value of the club. So ultimately, I think that's my job as a coach, as a leader of the team. With that, we want to win trophies, no question, for our fans. So I hope people don't take that quote the wrong way, but that's my job as the coach of the team. And I think you're starting to see some of the plan that I give our ownership credit with sticking me through some tough times as well. You're starting to see, some of the rewards from us sticking to the plan and maybe going a different way than other teams did. When other teams bought big name superstars, we believed in a youth academy and building that way. And it was our unique way. And it's starting to really show that it can be profitable, number one, and you can win first and foremost. So that's my feeling on things on that, Charles. And I hope people take that the right way and understand that, winning is still the priority number one, and that draws the attention here. But within that, we want to win games, and we want to also sell top players to Europe. And with that, young players are going to look at us and say, we want to come there. We want to be developed. We want to move on when the time is right. Play for the national team. These are all good things, and I think it paints our club in a positive light.
Yeah, and I couldn't have said that any better. Where, look, I know Julian Kranza probably had no say into coming to Philadelphia. It was a loan agreement between Inter Miami and the Union, and they agreed to send Julian to us here in Philadelphia. And people talked about it on social media plenty of times where, we know Julian Kranza was bought for $6 million from Inter Miami. The Union will probably never spend that amount of money on a single player. And let's be honest, too. A player that was highly thought of in Argentina probably isn't going to think about coming to Philadelphia. He'll have his eyes set on Miami, New York, LA. And so there's just no way the Union would have ever gotten Julian Kranza without getting a loan deal done with Inter Miami. And you know what? If you ask Julian, I'm sure he would say this is the best thing that's ever happened for his career, where he's in the best system that he can possibly be in. Where you look, Brenden Aaronson going to Leeds United, Mark McKenzie getting sold to Genk. The Union, I know it's only been 2 players, But there's going to be plenty other players getting sold that came out of the academy. European players that are going to get sold back to Europe or go to Europe for the first time. And I think when Julian Carranza was at Inter Miami playing against the Union, I think he saw the quality of the Union. And once he got thrown into the system here in Philadelphia, I think he realizes just how blessed he truly is to. He said it to Meg Swanek, I believe, against New York Red Bulls in the locker room. He said that, the thing he likes about Philadelphia is there's no egos in the locker room like there were down in Miami. And he's 100% right, because I say it all the time on this podcast, and you guys know this. The star of the team is the team itself. There is not one player that's the star. And I'm perfectly fine with it. And I think you guys are too. I mean, it's a recipe for success, like Jim said, bringing players up from the academy, selling those players, seeing that these players can offer something to the first team. Because, you want to win games. And these young players are helping us win games. Jack McGlynn scoring a decisive penalty against Nashville last season. Doesn't get bigger than that. A player that was in his first pro season with the first team. And he says, yeah, I want to step up and take a penalty. The ball's on him to say that. To see how Paxton, Jack, Quinn have all developed from last year to this year where, you feel confident where they can come off the bench and make a difference. You couldn't say that when they were first with the team, when they first got called up last season, where, they're getting used to how it is to be a professional, to play against other professional players in first teams. I know U2 and Bethlehem Steel, I know that's also considered professional, but it's not at the same level as MLS. And as the season got on, you saw that Paxton, Quinn, Jack were making a difference last year for the Union. And then when this season came, when, some people have said Jack and all them need to start more games. They need more playing time. But you weren't saying that last season when these guys were first called up to the team. But it's because we know that they make a difference, that we feel confident in these players. And Kai Wagner has spoken plenty of times. We talked about it last episode, how he wants to go back to Europe. You look at Liam Flock, where, yeah, it wasn't working out for him in St. Pauli. He comes to MLS. He's playing better than he did over in St. Pauli, where MLS has helped him get the attention of Greg Berhalter and the U.S. men's team. You go ahead and look. Jacob Glesnes, I think, could go back and play in Europe. I think Daniel Gazdag, with the season that he's having, he could go back to Europe. Jose Martinez, I think he could get a shot at Europe. I think Jack Elliott, it's crazy to me that he's still here at the club. He should be in Europe. Andre Blake's good enough for Europe. I mean, there's not a single player on this roster that's in the 11 that I don't think couldn't play in Europe. You're always going to sell your best players, and it sucks. But I think as fans, we do have to accept, and I think we do know, that MLS isn't up there with the Bundesliga, with the Premier League. And players have aspirations to go and play in these leagues because they're the best leagues in the world. But I think eventually MLS is going to be up there. And I know I've said that in the past too. But I truly do believe that, where you look just year after year, this league is getting so much better. And yeah, as fans, you see that we get $3 to $6 million more from this Brenden Aaronson deal. And we want that money spent back into the first team. We want to see that money spent on another big DP player. But, as fans, I think we just got to accept that the way that the Union do things, where they don't spend all that money on one player, is the way to go. And I think we'll see more and more teams in MLS start going that route. We're already seeing teams invest in their academy, giving their academy players first-team contracts. I think I saw today New England just gave one of their academy players a first-team deal. So we'll see more teams following the Union's route, going to these lower leagues, signing these players, developing them here in MLS, and then sending them back to Europe. And there's nothing wrong with that. And then when more and more teams do that, I think we'll start seeing the rules get changed in MLS. I know that MLS gets a certain percentage. I think it's 10% whenever you sell players that aren't homegrowns overseas. So, MLS is growing, and yeah, fans are going to want the Union to spend this $36 million. And I'm sure as the weeks go on, we'll see fans complaining, oh, well, the Union have this amount of money. Why aren't they spending it on players? And you can't blame the team for the way that they're doing things because it's obviously working. But let's go ahead and talk about the Portland Timbers versus the Philadelphia Union. And look, it's funny when you look that this game was supposed to start at 10:25. It starts at 10:35. You have NASCAR going on, so that means that the game has to be on FS2 to start. And, I think because of that, a lot of people probably missed the Daniel Gazdag goal. And I was talking about earlier how Fox didn't put the highlight video out. They pretty much don't care about MLS, and I don't think they're going to get the rights back for MLS once MLS announces who the new rights holder is going to be for the league, which should be coming up any minute now. So that's something I think we should all keep our eyes out on. Hopefully ESPN can retain them. I think CBS would be a great partner, but yeah, Fox seemed like they're pretty much done. When you look, they're not even putting the highlights out like I mentioned. I didn't see an option on their app website how you can rewatch the game. And so because of that, I couldn't break down the goals like I mentioned, I think, earlier. And so I'll only talk about what I remember from this game. And like I said, I think a lot of people probably missed the Gazdag goal, which was spectacular because it was a bicycle kick. But what caught my attention was it came from a set piece, a long throw-in into the box. Bedoya had the flick one, and Gazdag was there to put it in the back of the net. And I'm not sure how many of you guys listen to the podcast and pay attention to the stats like I do, but one thing I don't see anyone talk about on social media, or hardly anybody talking about on social media, is how the Union have been one of the best teams this year, starting the game so well in the first 15 minutes. They have 5 goals in 13 games during the first 15 minutes, and that's tied with Austin and New York City for first. And Jim's spoken about a few weeks ago how the Union at that point had 4 goals scored in the first 15 minutes. And I mentioned what was the difference, and Jim credited the players for just having the mentality to start the game strong. And, it was the complete opposite last year where we saw the Union conceding in the first 15 minutes and starting the game slow, but they eventually corrected that and have been on a roll ever since. And the Union have also allowed the fewest opening goals with 2. I mean, they're dominating teams in the first half. And if they could just find ways to go up 2-0 instead of 1-0, which they've done 8 out of 13 times this year, scoring 1 goal in that first half, going into halftime tied 1-0, then the opposition to start the second half would open up and we'd see a lot more 3 to 4 goal games come from the Union. But going back to the goal scored from Daniel, it was an excellent throw-in from Nate. And that was a crucial part of the Union's game plan against Portland on the night, who seemed to not have an answer for it at all. It's like, after the Union did it a couple times, Portland would put 2 players on the guy that was near post, and they still weren't winning the headers. They still weren't clearing the ball out. And I know a lot of fans have given Jay Sugarman a lot of crap in the past for not spending, for the way that he runs the team. But the one thing you can't get on him on is that he's always trying to find ways to be innovative for the Union. And he allows Jim and his staff to go out and bring in Thomas Gronmark, the throwing coach for Liverpool. And, it seems to be really paying off. We saw Kai Wagner on the left side with long throw-ins. Nate's deliveries on the right side with throw-ins have been excellent all season long. And you just got to find these little ways to win games. And how do we score our first goal? It comes off of a throw-in. And I'm fine with that. And I'm sure you guys are too, just watching the Union find different ways how they can beat teams, break down teams. And all the little aspects that the Union find ways to get the advantage of goes to Jim Curtin and his coaching staff for spending countless hours studying film, studying tape, looking at the stats, analyzing games, and finding out, okay, look, Portland's bad at defending throw-ins. Let's go ahead and attack that. And the first throw in the Union get in the game, it results in a goal. And again, just that's a credit to Jay Sugarman for just always going out there, finding ways how he can put the Philadelphia Union on top of everybody else in the league. Yes, not in terms of spending, but bringing in a throwing coach to really have a focus on analytics, to go out and find Ernst Tanner, who has an eye for talent in lower leagues. We've seen it. And so I give Jay a ton of credit for that. And look, since we're on the topic of set pieces, how about the Union allowing Julian Kranza and Jose Martinez to take 2 of those free kicks? I think Portland were definitely caught off guard by that. And they were probably expecting Kai Wagner to take both of them. I mean, I know I was, but, I think it's a good thing knowing that we have multiple players who are capable of taking set pieces. And I know Julian Kranza's free kick hit the wall, but just to have confidence to say, yeah, look, let me take this free kick. I think that's going to go a long way for this team, because how many times did we see over the years just floated free kicks from Jamir Montero where, yeah, it would get over the wall, but it would lose its pace and the goalkeeper would save it comfortably. But it was good seeing the Union starting the second half hot like the first. Outstanding cross from Kai Wagner and a perfect header from Sergio Santos. I was a little bit annoyed because I believe the ball started out on the right side of the field. It got crossed in and nobody was at the back post, which we saw that be an issue a couple times during the game, I believe. And we've seen it also in the last few games where nobody's going back post, because if they're back post, that's an easy tap in. But, if that's all we have to complain about, then I think the Union are doing something well. And I think the Union will probably get that corrected. I don't know when, but I think for sure before the end of the season, they'll have that corrected, just like we saw last season when they were conceding early on. It got corrected midway through the season. So for everybody that's noticing how they never have anybody on the back post, I'd like to believe that they're going to finally get that taken care of, hopefully sooner rather than later. But going back to that second goal that the Union scored so early in the second half, it forced Portland to change their game plan. And now they're going to come at you. They're going to go and be more attacking. And you're going to have the chance to hit them on the counterattack. And I know it didn't really happen that way for the Union, as they only had one shot after the Sergio Santos goal, which was Jose's free kick. The Union were creating a couple chances, but Portland did a good job clearing the ball out of the way. The goalkeeper did well to punch a couple of those crosses. And so the Union were only able to have one shot after the Sergio goal. But, the Union showed that they are comfortable absorbing pressure, especially in the last 15 minutes of the game when it was all Portland who kept pushing men forward. And, I got to give credit where it's due for Corey Burke, the way that he played. I thought he played well. He was asked to play sort of like a right midfielder who had more defensive responsibilities than attacking, and he did well. 7 headed clearances out there. He won 1 out of 2 aerial duels. Just a really good, solid defensive performance from Corey Burke. And again, just credit to Jim Curtin and his coaching staff to say, look, we're essentially going to park the bus here. We're going to lock it down. Corey Burke's one of our taller players, so anytime that they're going to go out there and start crossing balls in, Corey, we want you to be there to help us clear the balls out. And I don't know, maybe Corey Burke can be your 5th center back. But overall, just really happy with the way that the whole team played. So well organized. They worked their butts off to not allow a shot from Portland until the 86th minute. And another clean sheet, which you know what that means. One more clean sheet, and the Union have another pizza party coming their way for them. But Jim Curtin was asked to, after the game, just the quality of this team. And I think for me personally, I think this is the best attacking team the Union have ever had. And I know that it's really only 2 players getting it done for the Union in terms of goals, with Julian Kranza and Daniel Gazdag. But we're creating so many chances. And imagine once Mikel gets into this lineup, where a lot of these chances that we're creating, you feel like he'll put the ball in the back of the net. I mean, look at all the chances he got against Montreal in his first appearance when he came off the bench, when we were down a man. I mean, he makes something out of nothing. And I know once he's thrown into this team, we're going to see the goals coming. Ale Bedoya, I'm sure, has a couple goals in him. And, we're continuing to get goals off of set pieces, I truly believe. But this has definitely been the best attack that I've seen since I've started watching the Union since 2018, here and there in 2017 when it was on TV. But to see Daniel and Julian have the kind of chemistry that they have, to see Sergio and Julian have the chemistry that they have as well, and Sergio getting on the goal sheet, which finally we had a striker score a goal other than Julian Kranza. So it was nice to see. But like I mentioned, Jim Curtin was asked about the quality of the team after the game, and this is what Jim had to say about the quality.
This team has, raised its level. I think the expectations are higher. That's why you saw, frustration at even the tie in Los Angeles, which normally we would say great tie against the first place team. We were still, as players and as staff, a little bit disappointed that we dropped 2 points. I think our fans were upset. And that some people would think of that as pressure or accountability, whatever word you want to use. I think it's a good thing because it makes us feel like, we have to do better at all times. It's not good enough to be a team in the middle or towards the bottom fighting and scraping for points. We want to be a team that has worked really hard to get to the top and stay there. So I think our resume now over the last 3 seasons with the amount of points that these players have gotten for us is strong. And then now the hope is, and I say this, carefully, but the hope is now wins on the West Coast at places that are brutal, like LA, like Portland, like Seattle, can become more common. I think a lot of teams, when they get on the plane, they kind of go, uh-oh, this is going to be, we'll take our loss and get back on the plane. I don't think that this group has that mentality anymore. And I really am proud of the confidence that they showed, the character that they showed in the game. Because even at the moment where the VAR call goes our way, you could see the guys, there was no panic in them. They were still wanting to go and push and play our way.
Yeah, and you look last year too, where how many times did the Union come back on the road? I know that they didn't win games last year on the road a lot, but a lot of those games could have been losses, and they came back and found a way to get the game tied up. You look at Atlanta, they scored 2 late goals to tie that game up. And it's so hard in this league to go away, to get a point, and to win. Yeah, it hurts. Jim's right. I mean, it hurts them, it hurts us, where they should have beat LAFC. They should have beat Nashville. They got a point in. Just imagine if they would have won against LAFC and Nashville. And I think that's what hurts is, we see we're in first place in the Eastern Conference, but we could really be separating ourselves in the Eastern Conference and in MLS if we would have won these 2 games in Nashville and in LAFC. But, I guess the main thing is that we're seeing the Union go out on the road and score first. The Union are typically scoring first, like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, but this is a team that I just hope that they can keep up this form on the road. And I know we've wanted to see them win a couple more games at home. The draw against Montreal at home hurts, but look, this is a team that's in first place. It's one thing that we can't say that they aren't. It just hurts that they could definitely be pulling away from everybody else if some of those results, if they could have closed the games out. But it was a good sign to see the Union start the second half, like I said, get that goal with Sergio Santos to give us a 2-goal cushion. Great call by VAR on the offsides call. And that was close. It was close, and I'm glad that they had a look at it. Jacob and Jack Elliott did a good job to block the ball off the line with the initial shot, and then Blanco scores the goal, but Moreno was off, and the goal didn't count. So, I mean, great job by VAR for getting that one right, and just a great job, like I said, from every single player on that field, and the players that came off the bench, and the players that started. I mean, that was a real professional game by the team. Might have been their best game all season. I don't think it was their best game, like the best possible form for the Union, But I think that was probably their best game we've seen all season. And to do it in a place like Portland where the Union have never won, you love to see it. But let's go ahead and talk about the 3-star players. So, like I mentioned right at the beginning of the podcast, Daniel Gazdag, Kai Wagner, Ale Bedoya are all my 3 stars. Daniel Gazdag first, 42 touches. I mean, we're starting to see the Union get him on the ball a lot more than what they were at first. This guy is so good at changing directions for having a splitting pass where he was 26 for 33 on his passes. The more and more Daniel Gazdag gets on the ball, the more he's creating. And the one thing I like about the Union is he'll start with the ball, and then he'll pass it off, and then they'll look for him. His movement off the ball is so clever, and it's why it's like so weird that, yeah, he's a number 10, but like he doesn't play as your typical number 10 because he's getting himself inside the 6-yard box, the 18-yard box, playing as a second striker, and watching him drift out wide on the right. It's interesting watching how Daniel Gazdag is playing, and like I said, 42 touches of the ball. The more we get Daniel on the ball, the more good things are going to happen. He had 6 ball recoveries, 1 chance created on the night. Kai Wagner, 4 clearances, 3 of those were headed, 3 interceptions, 4 recoveries, 2 chances created, 1 assist. And everybody talks about the offensive production that Kai Wagner brings to a team, but that was one of Kai's best defensive performances on the night, and he shows he's not only a fullback that can attack, but when it's asked of him to defend, he can defend with the best of them in MLS. And just enjoy him, guys. Honestly, like, enjoy Kai Wagner for as long as we have him, because that July transfer window is going to be here before we know it, and Kai Wagner might not be a Union player anymore. So these 4 games left of Kai Wagner before the window opens up, let's not take them for granted. And number 3, Ale Bedoya, 4 to 5 aerials, 11 ball recoveries, 3 interceptions, 2 chances created, 1 assist. We had a passer right before halftime to Sergio Santos that split 3 Portland players. I mean, it was a great move by Daniel Gazdag to bring the ball down, I believe it was, to turn and then find Ale Bedoya. Ale hits that pass first time and splits 3 players for Portland, and Sergio had a good touch on that, and the Union tried to counter fast. Unfortunately, weren't able to score off of that, but it's what you want to see. You want to see the Union move this ball fast, and the way that the Union have been playing this season is working, and I have no complaints about it. It's just finding ways to finish off plays, and you throw Mikel in there, those plays are going to start getting finished off, I believe. So just a really great performance by the Union. It was hard for me to pick 3-star players because I think everybody played good. There was not a single player that had a bad day, in my opinion. But the last topic that I want to get to is Blunder of the Week. And I had a couple choices for Blunder of the Week, but my Blunder of the Week is going to go to the team that I hate most in European soccer, and that's to Manchester City, because of their fans. I don't know if you guys saw this or not. Like, I haven't seen any video of it, but reports of it I've seen plenty of, where Steven Gerrard accused Manchester City fans for attacking Aston Villa goalkeeper Robin Olsen after the match. And Manchester City came out and condemned it and said that they're going to look in, and once they find out who did it, they're going to ban them and whatnot. But I think it's ridiculous that it even got to this point. Like, we saw, last week, 2 weeks ago, where Everton fans, which, like, honestly, like, that should be Blunder of the Week, for watching Everton fans storm the field after they avoided relegation. Like, that is really, really, really pitiful, where you're celebrating not getting relegated. You're celebrating as one of the worst teams in the Premier League. Like, that's such a joke, right? And I know it's happened before in England where when fans storm the pitch, there's been fines, there's been point deductions, and like, can you guys imagine, like, if Everton would have had points deducted from them because their fans stormed the pitch, and now they would have got relegated because their fans cost them points? or if City would have got points deducted from them and now the title goes to Liverpool, like they would have never have done either one of those things. But man, can you imagine the drama, the controversy if the Premier League would have had the balls to do that? And so to see all these Manchester City fans storm the pitch, destroy their goal post, like what are you doing? Like you're acting like hooligans. Like I get you're excited and everything, but to go and attack a player to destroy your goal post, like no, I was excited when the Union won the Supporters' Shield, as you guys were too, but I didn't see a single fan go and storm the pitch after the Union won their first trophy in team history. So, act like we've been here before. That's all I'll say. But so I was thinking about it on Monday, recording this podcast on Tuesday. So you guys are probably listening to this podcast on Wednesday, where I was like, okay, I'll go ahead and get a New England play-by-play commentator on the podcast, whether it's Charlie Davies or Brad Feldman, who I had on the podcast before. But then I forgot. I was like, no, I can't do this because New England played New York City in the U.S. Open Cup on Wednesday. Can't record on Friday because the game's on Saturday, so that would give you guys no time to listen to that podcast. So the only day that would potentially work is Thursday. And I never like to give commentators, people that are going to come onto the podcast, only one day as an option. I like to give them multiple days, and nothing was going to work out. So there's, again, going to be no preview episode for New England. I apologize for that, but I'm sure we all know how New England are going to play. We've seen them, 20 times the last 3 years? I mean, it's ridiculous how many times we've played New England. At least we're not playing them 6 times like we did in 2020, so that's a plus, right? But if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow @FreeKickPod, wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick. And once we go on a break and everything, then I got to figure out how to build a website on WordPress, I think I said I was going to use. Definitely not Weebly, because, I don't know, I paid for that website to get posted, and they never posted the website. So, oh man, what a waste of money for a month, right? But we live and learn, and hopefully I'll have a website posted for you guys. And I don't know if any of you guys ever thought about writing, or if you've wrote before, if you want a place to talk about the Union, I would love to bring people on the website and write about the Union, whether it be U2, whether it be the academy, whether it be the first team. If that's something anybody would be interested in, just hit me up on Twitter, like I said, Instagram, email. I think the email is freekickpodcast.com. So you definitely have options to get in contact with me, but hopefully we get 3 points, get another clean sheet, which means a pizza party for the Union, which would be a great pizza party too, I feel like, because you get a pizza party, now you get a 3-week break before you take on FC Cincinnati. So I don't know, there's definitely extra motivation here for the Union to keep a clean sheet, to get a win against New England, because it's always fun beating New England, but you throw a pizza party on top of that, makes it even better. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.